and welcome to episode 54 of the award-winning Combat Sports Podcast, The Boxing Show, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I'm joined by the usual twosome from the desert, Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke, as we review a packed weekend in the sport. But before we do that, something else that we're keen to review. I don't know if anybody's seen, but there's been a new book out this week. The Knockout by the Boxing Show's very own Mr. Andy Clarke. So this is a new addition to the Boxing Show set here. So I'm just gonna put that up there. Andy, congratulations. Obviously, if you've watched this, you may have heard something about this book over the past couple of years. Well done, congratulations.
Or if you've been on social media last week, where it's been bashed out by everyone and anyone.
It has.
To be fair, everyone's been coming up to you saying, can I have your book? Honestly, people have been messaging me. I gotta send you some screenshot and send you. People have been asking me for your book as well. People I don't know. Could I put a thing out we recorded? They said, where can I get the book from? And I went, I'll give it a week and it'll be like half price.
We're going to put it there. Sorry, George Grimes. We're going to put it in front of George Grimes.
Most places, but Amazon's easiest is the answer.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Is the answer.
So
it's been really fun. It's been really fun. It was a really good week to be at a fight week, actually. I hadn't really thought that through that much because I'd planned.
Of course you haven't.
My plans were already in place with stuff I had ready for it. And then when we got there, I thought, yeah, this is great because there's just loads of people you can press it in their hand and they're happy to big it up even though they haven't read it, which is great. I mean, I guess it shows that they just kind of trust that you haven't written some terrible piece of shit. Deontay Wilder was cool, like he took a photo with it. Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been really, really fun. So we'll see what happens. We were number one in the boxing charts for like 2 or 3 days over the weekend.
Nice.
And we're still kind of high up there. So yeah, it's just quite odd, like some of them, how they categorise things though, because there's a few books knocking around in those boxing charts that are just not boxing books.
Like what?
They're just kind of like underworld novels.
With the boxing theme.
Yeah, and then the category up from that is combat sports and self-defense, and there's a colouring book in the charts for that one, for example.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Okay. Violent colouring.
So
anyone who's got a toddler at home will probably sympathise with that.
Did you see the build up to the week where the weigh-in was, the press conference and all the rest of it? So they had it's like a Times Square, wasn't it? But see all the screens come up and you should have got your book on that.
Oh
yeah,
God, imagine.
Yeah, that could have been good.
You could have done that. You could, if you really thought about it, you could have got that, even if it was for like a couple of seconds just for you to take a photo.
I guess maybe, yeah. And that never even crossed my mind, to be honest.
Yeah.
That never even crossed my mind.
It was
it was really fun. It's been a long time coming out, and we'll see what happens. I'm really happy with it. So to an extent, I would prefer it. Obviously, if people thought it was amazing and we sold loads of copies, but as for what people think of it, they're perfectly entitled to think whatever they want,
as long as they buy it.
Yeah, I'm pleased with it. So
streaming.
But more important than all that, no offence, than that, we were at the fight. We spoke to each other, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And with no one awkward, no one think I better go.
We were all over each other.
No, we waved early in the week. We waved each other, didn't we?
Yeah,
anyone
kisses,
don't know,
everything.
Anyone don't know. Me and Andy see each other almost every Monday. Used to be every Monday since we won the award. It's every 3 Mondays.
We won the award now.
And then we walk to the tube station together almost every time.
Hand in hand.
Then when we're on a show, whether he's working for TalkSport and I'm doing TNT, fuck me, I'm doing DAZN, or if I'm doing 5 Live and you're doing Sky, or if we're both doing Sky, we didn't really talk to each other when we were both doing Sky. We don't speak to each other. The whole week in Saudi, we didn't ignore each other. It was weird. We spoke to each other this week, early on the Tuesday. We were waving. By Wednesday, he was coming over.
It's funny though, isn't it? Like you hit that kind of like
I was enjoying it, actually.
Tipping point sometimes where you see somebody often enough that when you see them, you kind of think, I don't need to kind of go and shake your hand every time I see you because I see you a lot.
Yeah, that's his excuse.
Yeah, that's my
There we go.
excuse.
Saudis are bringing Matchroom and Queensberry together, and now bringing Barry and Andy together.
I'll tell you another thing as well. Listen, this is what Saudi have done. So, Dev and Jamie Ward did this little skit, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were both they were playing off each other. It was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Even Dev was really good, and I don't say that very often. But I don't do any excuse to slag him off jokingly.
Shout out Dev.
Jokingly, of course, I do. But they were really good, weren't they? It was brilliant. Yeah. It was really, really fun. I don't know if I've ever seen it early in the week.
I thought that stuff really worked because Dev knows the Queensberry fighters really well. Jamie knows the Matchroom fighters really well. And they were more than happy just to have some fun with it.
It looked like a lot of fun. And with that being said, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about the 5 versus 5. Obviously, a resounding win for Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions. But let's start off with the first fight, Barry. I think it's fair to say going into the 5 versus 5, Craig Richards was seen as probably the most favoured to get Matchroom on the board, but he didn't do that, and it was in the end a pretty comprehensive win for Willie Hutchinson.
Yeah, I was saying that. I thought that out of all the fights, Willie Hutchinson had a chance, of course, because he's very talented, but he hadn't boxed nowhere near that level. So I just thought that, if Craig Richards was anywhere near as good as we've seen him in the past, even in defeats, then he would have after a few rounds, he'd have a relatively easy time, I thought, in the end. But so I was saying that Eddie Hearn made a mistake not making Craig Richards his captain. Because I thought that's a double pointer. I don't think he get the stoppage, but he could have maybe. But either way, he's going to get double points there. And he picked Wilder, and I thought Wilder wasn't going to win, and I was right once. But he boxed great, Hutchinson. I thought he made Craig Richards look old, and maybe he is old, and in boxing terms, but with inactivity and the rest of it, but. Who knows? I just think he boxed brilliant. He was fast on his feet. He was getting loads of angles with his body for shots, and Richards couldn't live with him. And Richards looked like he either got a problem with his right hand, or just didn't feel comfortable throwing it because of the movement of Hutchinson.
Switching.
Yeah, he was fan. He was still. I always say that for your biggest fight, you want your best performance, don't you? Always. And I think he produced it on Saturday night, and he really sold himself. And now, as we found out today, he might have a chance of a vacant bull title shot.
He may well. Andy, we've spoken about in the past with it's been quite a topic of conversation with fighters turning over pro and having the senior experience, which we saw kind of rear its ugly head earlier in Willie Hutchinson's career against Lennox Clarke. Obviously was stopped for the British title, but seems to have matured since then. And it was a very mature performance from him, and obviously a breakout win against somebody in Craig Richards who has competed with the very best in the division.
It really was. It was one of those fights where, as I said previously, if you look at the things the way that I do, then you have to pick Richards. And I think everybody picked Richards, or at least said you have to install him as a heavy favourite, because you did have to, given on the resumes of bodies of work. But a big performance from Hutchinson was always possible. It was definitely always possible, because he was very good as an amateur. No senior experience, but when he won that World Youth title and the way that he did it, or the people he beat in the 2 years running up to it, it wasn't that he went to the championships, had a good draw, boxed really well, and won a gold medal. He basically beat everyone for kind of 2 years before that, David Morrell included, for example. So he was looked upon as being a really special fighter. Then you turn over without any senior experience, you get to 10 or 12-0 as he did, and then you take that big step up, and people were making him favourite against Lennox Clarke because there was a lot of belief in him, and he got dismantled. And that's the danger, isn't it?
But he didn't swallow it, did he?
No.
And that's what people forgot about that.
No, he didn't. And there was a lot going on outside the ring at that point. I didn't really know about that, but I discovered that early in fight week from other people, that it was one of those situations where if he'd been a bit older and wiser, he probably wouldn't have boxed, but he did, and he paid the price, and he boxed really, really well, But he's got a lot of ability, and he put it all together. And it was the first time he'd been 12 rounds. I'm not sure he'd been beyond 6 actually before that, or maybe 8.
I think it was 8.
Yeah. So I thought he kind of navigated his way through it really skillfully. He kind of stood and traded a bit in the 11th, and I began to wonder if he was just going to throw it away. And then in the final round, stayed out of trouble, and he coasted, to be honest.
I think what you said there, he put it all together. I think that sums it up perfectly. So just stop. No, I think he got it all together, and even the holding his feet there, he was knackered.
Yeah.
And so he shook. He did a lot of work, threw a lot of punches, and Richards was trying to put the pressure on at the end. But so he had to hold his feet, but he was still fighting back. And when he got hurt with a good shot, he fired back straight away. He did a lot of good things. And I think that was the most surprising win of all, I thought, on Saturday night. And even that, and also, by the way, whichever you looked at that fight, that wasn't going to be an exciting fight. It was going to be an intriguing fight at best, but it was going to be a tactical affair, because Richards doesn't do loads unless he has to, and Hutchinson was stepping up a level, so he didn't know how he was going to cope with the long shots of and certainly that long right hand, which never really showed up of Richards, but it turned out to be a really good fight.
Yeah.
And I thought, if this is meant to be the one that's not good, that's not meant to be good.
It was a great start.
What are the rest going to be like?
Yeah, it was a great start.
Barry, you just mentioned there about the WBO and the order for the WBO interim title between Willie Hutchinson and Joshua Buatsi. I think it's fair to say 6 to 12 months ago, we wouldn't really have been thinking about that as a potential bout. But given Willie Hutchinson's performance at the weekend, do you think that's a realistic route for him? Should he be looking for that next?
Well, if you get an opportunity to fight for a world title, you take it, regardless whether you're ready or not. Unless you're destined to be a world champion, then you do the sensible thing and plan your route. But when you're not, which he's not, he's a talent, as you said, but he was junior, so it's hard to gauge it, as Andy always says, and he's right. I'm very agreeable today.
It's good, I like it. It makes a nice change.
But I hate myself for it. But I think it's I'm only being agreeable because I picked Queensberry to win the competition, not in the route they did, but I was the only one on his own who did that. I think Ariel Helwani did it, but he did it from the safety of New York. So I might not have a job with DAZN anymore. It's just to say, if anyone's looking for anybody. But yeah, it was. So yeah, you're not quite sure they're going to react, and I think he was. I think so. Now he's boxed at that level and beat a good guy who's been fringe world level. I think, which is fair to say.
Yeah, for sure.
He had a great performance against Bivol, but he's still judging him on his losses. It's always dangerous to do. Then yeah, you take the Buatsi fight because Buatsi's shown great ability, he's a massive talent, and he had a really good win against Dan Aziz last time out. But still, it's a tricky fight for him. I think you've got to make Buatsi a massive favourite, but who knows? I mean, and also, is he deserving a world title shot? Really, Hutchinson? No, he's not. So you definitely take it. I'm saying that because I was there. Was I really deserving? Probably not. Probably. I know I wasn't. Maybe I wasn't. I fucking definitely wasn't. But you just take it because you might not get the opportunity again. And you never know what's going to happen. It could change your life. And everyone loves an interim world title, as we know. It's one of our favourite things.
Yeah,
only better by a regular world title.
Yeah, obviously.
It puts him in the line for. It puts him in, if he could beat Joshua Buatsi, it puts him in the line for a genuine world title shot.
Yeah, I mean, one would expect that after Beterbiev Bivol, which obviously has now got the new date of October the 12th. After that, you'd expect various belts to become fragmented, as is always the case with the Undisputed. So yeah, would put him next in line. And that type of style, as we saw, Craig Richards really struggled to work him out. 1 minute he's switching, the next minute he's orthodox. He's a very talented fighter. Andy, going to come to you for the awkward question. Where does that leave Craig Richards? I mean, we've seen him lose in the past with respect to Willie Hutchinson, a much higher level against Dimitri Bivol. Obviously had the fight with Joshua Buatsi and obviously very, very long time ago against Frank Buglioni. This feels like a different sort of loss at this stage of his career. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it is. It is. That's the unfortunate truth of it for him because he's been inactive. He wasn't able to build on that good performance against Buatsi. I remember seeing him in late 2021, I think it would have been, and at that stage he was supposed to fight Bolotnik, or in 2022 it was around that time, wasn't it? And then and I thought that's a brilliant fight for him because I thought he would beat him and it would be a meaningful win. And I remember talking to him about it and saying, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're judged off your losses. And he agreed, and he said, yeah, that's why he's the right guy for me. It didn't happen, and he's been out for a long time, and when you get the other side of 30, that can be an issue, even if you stay in the gym and you keep working. And I believe that he definitely has done that because he's that kind of person. But sometimes when you next have to really dig down and find something, the fear is that it might not quite be there. And he just didn't really have the answers against Hutchinson. And that was what you would describe as a kind of crossroads fight, potentially, because Richards is a lot more experienced. And if you lose to Hutchinson, then it is a case of, well, where does he go from there? And I don't really know, to be honest, where he goes from there, because there's that mix of fighters that he's had to watch. Although I know they haven't been super active, but you watch Aziz come up on the rail. He finally fights Buatsi. Yar's been boxing for world titles. People have been doing stuff. Whittaker emerges, Lyndon Arthur, and you've just not been in it, really. And the win against Hutchinson would be right, get me involved in that. And that's just not going to happen now, is it?
No, I mean, you mentioned a couple of names there that could potentially be on the still available fights, Barry. One name that springs to mind for me is Dan Aziz, of course, also had that fight with Joshua Buatsi. Then there's Lyndon Arthur.
Yeah, I thought Lyndon Arthur, actually.
But again, it's I guess, I mean, we kind of get to this stage when we talk about fighters, certainly the wrong side of 30. It's not like it used to be. Obviously, he's still a young man, relatively. But what does he want to carry on fighting for? That's kind of potentially what's at stake for those.
Like all fights, like I say, fighters are the biggest liars and blah blah blah. He'll just convince himself it was an underpowered performance. It's only his second fight
since the Buatsi fight.
Second fight with Shane
McGuigan.
Yeah, second fight since Buatsi been inactive and all the rest of the stuff. And maybe he did have a problem with his right hand, and that might come out. I don't know. But so you'll sell that to yourself. But the truth of the matter is, no, he can still carry on fighting. But what once you box this, once you give Bivol a hard fight, you might think you're world class. To take yourself out to that and say, actually, I've got to start from domestic level as the opponent. That's what it is. So if he boxes anyone around there now, then he's going to be boxing on their shows as their opponent. No, Whittaker, I'll take him. No, and he's going to go and box Ben Whittaker. Like, it's a really hard fight for anyone, Ben Whittaker, but you're going to go out beyond that, beyond fighting prospects on the way up, and it'll be hard for him to swallow. But I think that's his route. If he wants to get back up quick, you got to beat someone like that on the way up, like a Hutchinson again. No, if he would have got beat, it would have been someone like a Hutchinson. But so that's where Hutchinson is, isn't he? That's what you think. I know he's boxed for an interim world title fight now, but in reality, he's on his way to a British title shot. That's the truth. If boxing was what it should be. So it's going to be hard to see where he goes. But I think he still do stuff. But you have to reset your internal ambition for the short term, not for the long. For the short term.
That's exactly
so maybe I go for that British title. Maybe I do that and start. And if I get that, then there's no such thing as European title now. You go straight to world level, don't you? But maybe that's you got to go that route. But that route's hard enough. You're boxing all these young, hungry guys now when you thought you passed them by, and you're getting up to the guys who are. See, this win, the Buatsi loss never moved him back. It kept him where he was. The Bivol fight moved him forward.
Yeah. That's such a good point. The 3 fights he lost before that, his stock rose.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like short notice against Bullioni, stock rose.
This
Bivol, stock rose.
Massive.
Buatsi, stock definitely stayed at least where it was.
Yeah.
Whereas now, this is different, isn't it?
This one sinks dramatically. That's just the truth of it. Like, the guy stole his place and he moves back down like where he was or below. So it's a hard. And as at that age, you want to have that. Can you afford to have that 2-3 years of building? You can't. So who knows? And
particularly at some point, someone's going to offer you a good chunk of change to fight a Ben Whittaker or somebody like that, and it's difficult to say no, isn't it?
It is. So his career's not over.
No,
I think he's still got plenty to offer, but he might.
It's a hard route back to world title contention, isn't it?
To get back difficult. Quick, he's going to have to take a risky fight. If he loses that one,
a risky fight,
then he really is in trouble.
All that sort of stuff. It's going to be all those sort of things. Who knows?
Anyway, a good start to proceedings for Frank Warren's Queensberry. Obviously, a running theme throughout the night. Andy, going to come to you for the second fight on the card, which was, of course, for the WBA featherweight title. What a fight between Ray Ford and the new featherweight champion, Nick Ball. I think everybody expected that to be fireworks from the opening bell, and they certainly didn't disappoint.
It was great. I saw the pair of them a lot during the week, just coincidentally. I just seemed to be in the dining room when they were there. Ray Ford spent an unusual amount of time in the dining room, given that I think he was finding it
staring at the food.
Difficult.
and a lot of time with the hood on as well.
Yeah, I think people were talking all week about always tight the weight, and when one person says it, then everybody starts saying it, and it can all get a bit ridiculous. But I saw him enough to be able to see that his energy levels were genuinely low. It wasn't the fact that he wasn't stuffing his face at the buffet, because you wouldn't expect him to be. And at the lower weights, everybody's weight trained, aren't they? That's the reality. But I could just see from the way that he was moving about the place. I saw him in the gym a couple of times, and there was very little energy there. So I think it was tough. Ball's got the weight down to an absolute science. He was eating during the week.
He looked healthy as anything.
And they like to try and hit it right 9 stone on the button. It's a bit of a point of pride for them to get it that right, that they get it right on the nose, and he pretty much did. And he looked healthy, he looked good. And then by the time everybody else saw him in the evening, because they weighed in at lunchtime, it was like he'd been inflated a bit. He looked really, really good. And the fight itself, though, having said that, all of the stuff about Ford and the weight and this and that, he got outworked in the first half of the fight, basically, didn't he? And found himself probably 5-1 down at halfway. I had, and then in the second half of the fight, when you thought he might be struggling, he did everything he could to really just grab it by the scruff of the neck and get back in it. And he had the better of the second half, I would say, but just didn't quite do enough. I had Ball 7-5 at the end. And I'll admit, I wanted him to win because of what happened against Ray Vargas. Those were two absolutely horrific cards that ended up with the draw. So I was relieved when I heard the split decision go his way. But it was close. It was a close fight.
Barry, just following on from what Andy said there, I think the general feeling was in the fight that Nick Ball might grow into it, and as we've seen in the past, he's got 12 rounds. Obviously, we've seen Ray Ford with a 12-round knockout as well to win the title, but we've seen as the fights go on, he's still there and he's still throwing punches. But it was kind of a role reversal,
wasn't it?
wasn't
The other way around, yeah.
Yeah, Ray
exactly.
Ford held his feet early on and then found his movement in the second half of the fight, and that actually played to his strengths. Do you think that Ford got that wrong, or was that a combination of Ball making him fight that way?
Yeah, I think because of the worry of the weight. Listen, Bob, the thing with Ball, he makes you, even if he's not winning the rounds, which he usually does, but he'll make you work so hard that his energy doesn't stop, and then he just keeps building on, and hopefully you slow down, and then he overtakes you, as we saw in the Vargas fight. But I think in this fight, he just started just as fast, but he had more success than he took, I think, because Ford tried to hold this, because Ford knows he can dig it out now, knows how tough he is, and knows how strong he can be. He thought he could bully a Ball, I think. He tried to walk him down, and then didn't work at all. I think with someone like when you're a slick puncher, smooth puncher like Ford, you've got to be a little bit on the balls of your feet. Now on the balls of your feet takes away the power a little bit, but it gives you nice fluency and momentum, and you can move in and out with your feet. You can get a smoothness to your work, which he needs, which he did in the second half. Actually, that's what he did. It's made a difference. But I think he was trying to stay in close and just show that I'm not going to be intimidated by your strength. But you don't play a guy. Never play a guy his own game. Even if you think you can show your strength in other ways, but only do it when you have to do it. Let him run at you and make you miss and make him pay if you can. I thought Ford's jab was going to be really important. I thought that was going to be the weapon that was going to stop Ball from running at you, or at least stop him in his tracks enough for him to fall short a little bit. And he just, because he allowed Ford's Ball close up, Ball was allowed to work away. And didn't he just, to be fair? And after that, after the first 6 rounds, I thought, I can't see how Ford gets back into it, because this is Ball's time now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Second half of the fight, he's like, I'm still going. He almost thinks, right, yes. It's just like, it was winding him up even more.
Yeah,
now, isn't it?
it breaks you down, and sort of you can see that he gets more momentum from it.
Yeah, mentally, he just don't stop coming.
But I think Ford is just tough, isn't he? He is tough.
But you don't have to sell it. You know you're tough. So that's brilliant. But only use him when you have. He's also a massively skillful fighter. But then he got it together in the second half, and I thought he was boxing really well, and it went right down to the last round. It was close.
There were some tough rounds to score in that second half, and at the end, I was kind of a bit nervous for Nick Ball, because I thought for Ford to have won, you're probably going to needed to have given him everything that you could give him. But that wasn't that was possible.
You could do that. Yeah,
you could do that. You could look at the rounds and think, well, those were all really close, and if you give them all to him, which you can, then I think that's probably what the judge you had, unless the judge you gave it 7-5 Ford scored the first half differently to how pretty much everybody I've spoken to saw it, and that's not impossible either, is it? Then that's what he must have done.
But it's funny with Ball, because you sort of think, even though you shouldn't, it's not fair on Ford, you sort of want him to get it because of what happened.
Yeah.
He deserves if he gets another draw now, or even though that could have been that might have been the right result, you still think
I had it a draw, and I kind of felt like it could.
I was sat there thinking that was a real possibility.
Because then you're going to start to think he's a real confident kid, he was all week. But you got to think, he must have. Am I never going to go over the line? Sometimes it's not meant to be for you, and you start to think that, wouldn't you? And but he was, and he got there, and you can't begrudge him anything. And I think Ford, as he said, he's moving up. As he said after the Commonwealth fight, I need to go to super featherweight, pretty much. I'm paraphrasing what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
But yeah, and now he'll go up, I think, and he'll still be a force at that weight. But Ball now is the world at his feet, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so, and he could stay it that way.
Well, he might have a massive fight now against a Nui or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he got a trip to Japan for £750,000 or whatever.
Yeah, featherweight. So it's a good time to be a featherweight at the minute. Some really interesting fights as well at featherweight. assuming he does stay down. Obviously, you mentioned as well that you guys saw him in the fight week. He is it's a big featherweight. He may not be, but he is stocky.
He stood next to me because most of my life I'm doing this. But like all week, I'm like all week like this. Like, it's pain in my neck. And then he stood next to me, and he's down here, so he's tiny in height.
I was going to say, but he's as wide as he is tall.
He's twice as wide as me.
But he says he's going to. Well, he kind of alluded to potentially moving up to 130. Ray Ford said if he moves up to 130, I'll fight him up there. But if he stays at 126, some really interesting fights. I quite like the idea of him boxing Rafael Espinosa, the guy who beat Robeisy Ramirez. You've got one guy who's 6 foot and another guy who's 5'2". It'd be another sort of Ray Vargas fight. But Espinosa very, very busy. Luis Alberto Lopez, somebody we know very well over here. That would be a brilliant fight.
That'd be a brilliant fight, yeah.
He beat Lopez.
I'd love to see it.
I think he beat Lopez.
You got two guys who are.
I think you got to knock. I think you got to really be able. You either got to be a real slick fighter to beat Ball and use it, or you got to be able to really hurt him. He can be hurt, I think. But he
was hurt in the 12th round in particular that was by Ray Ford. I actually give the last round to Ford because I felt like he landed the more effective, more concussive shots. But Nick Ball showed that he's got, because Ford has shown in the past, the Kolmatov fight, that he does carry power late into the fight, and he was catching him with some really clean shots, sitting down on the shots in the 12th round, wasn't he?
But that engine of Ball, it's so difficult to fight, isn't it?
And he's clever with it too, because when a fighter gets described as relentless and they never stop coming forward and all that kind of thing, it's
you think clumsy, don't you?
Yeah, it's easy for people to think that that's all it is, but he's much, much better than that. He's hard. He's just really difficult to hit. He's hard to catch clean. Because you're having to punch down, and that's not something that you'll be used to because he's short and he makes himself shorter. Some
other fights for Nick Ball, obviously now the WBA champion, Stephen Fulton, number one of the WBA. Lewis Neary, of course, dropped Naya Inoue. That's a
boring fight down there.
Lopez
fight. And then but there's Ray Vargas, do a rematch for unification. Luis Alberto Lopez, Rafael Espinosa. I think Ray Vargas is going to box Brandon Figueroa, who's the interim champion,
which is another great fight.
Yeah, Brandon Figueroa against Nick Ball. So lots to like about the future for Nick Ball.
They're all massive featherweights, aren't they? I mean, they're all big featherweights, regardless of a Ball stature. To be fair, I know they come up in weight, but they're all big for the
Espinosa, Vargas, and Figueroa are both guys that could be like light middles. All of them, like they're massive, all of them. But a very, very interesting fight.
Ball looked healthy in the Tuesday we spoke to him.
He looked great all week.
His face was full. Wasn't he?
Yeah, no, he was eating properly. He was. It was. It's impressive.
It was a good fight, though, wasn't it? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Really good to watch. Really good.
I mean with Ford, stop the show there, and that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah. With Ford, I mean, he's probably been at featherweight maybe 2-3 fights longer than he ideally would want to. But obviously, you're closing in on a world title shot, so you stay. You get a world title shot, you stay. You win it, and then you go for the fight in Saudis. Your first defense, you fucking stay. So it's
you've got to stay anyway because. Unless you're a huge draw,
that's it. That's where you make your money.
So you can't. So if you were the big ball, you still stay.
Yeah, it happens all the time, doesn't it? The fighters
Selby's a prime example.
Staying at a weight longer than they probably should because they've done all that work at that weight to get to the business end where they can make money and win stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes up at super featherweight, though. Matchroom don't hold a belt up there. Navarrete, I think, still got the WBO after his venture up at lightweight. Anthony Kakachi, of course, now the IBF champion. Oshaki Foster, who boxes Robson Oconce-Sao soon. And Lamont Roach.
Who's Roach with? Is he PBC?
Top rank.
Top rank. Is he top rank? Is he?
Yeah. So he's, I didn't
know that. I didn't know he was top rank.
I think he's signed with.
Is that recent? This sign?
Yeah, because he boxed as a free agent.
Yeah.
But is he with top rank?
But it's hard for him because Shaki Foster's also was a DAZN or Matchroom.
Yeah, and he's now here.
He's now a PBC as well. The top rank as well, isn't he? Or ESPN fighter.
Actually, so he's not. He's with Pro Box, Lamont Roach.
Oh, Pro Box.
So he's boxing over at Pro Box.
But they work with. I think they were happy to work with people there.
I mean, you not with me. Would
promise me no to work.
But I mean, Lamont Roach is a potential option for him. Lee Wood moving up to 130. There's no belt for that, so you kind of thinking.
You would say Joe Cordina then, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you would imagine that his next fight's probably up at lightweight as well. Cordina. But anyway, 2-0 to Queensberry until we entered the middleweight.
And deservingly as well.
Yeah.
It was good. It was funny backstage, because you were out front all the time, but I didn't really have a lot to do on the night. I did a few post-fight interviews, so when the fight, I got to watch all of every single fight, and then as soon as the decision was announced, I just nipped backstage and grab a quick interview for the Queensberry channel, and just the bands backstage as the results came in was good. It was fun.
But that's what
it was
really
really
for.
good.
I think we had some production meetings, and it was a real let's sell that team event. This is what's going to maybe change the sport to get more nights like this, and so we really let's just bash this team event thing, and hoping the fighters get on board with it. That was it. Even though it's an individual sport, we have to just worry about your own fight, but also especially with that $3 million bonus.
Yeah.
Which first of all, they I got to be honest, right? They was going $3 million for the winning team, and then by 2 days later, it was $3 million for the promoter.
For the winning promoter.
For the promoters, I was like,
At no point was it kind of suggested by anyone that was going to get divvied up. I think the promoter would feel like the fighters were getting paid well enough.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they were probably getting paid very well. But the
team thing's interesting, isn't it? Like I've always felt there's a place for it, because as you're trying to kind of broaden the sport out, a team thing is really easy for viewers and just casual sports fans to understand, and that for me is the real kind of beauty of it. But you don't want to do it too much, because we don't want to be, fighters aren't going to be wanting to pretend too often that they actually care about the team.
Yeah, there was a moment in the
honest,
Nick Ball.
I think they genuinely enjoy the dynamic during the week, but on the night, if you said to any of them, you can win your fight, but your team loses 4-1, they'll take the win.
Yeah, there was the moment in the Nick Ball and Ray Ford fight where I watched it on DAZN. Shout out DAZN. Bought it for Barry only. Anyway, I watched it on there. There was a moment in there. It's like, and Ray Ford, he's 3 minutes away from Matchroom being 2-0 down. He's like 3 minutes away from losing his world title, man.
Yeah.
He's literally grown up dreaming of becoming world champion. Like, he doesn't give a fuck about that.
The team thing it makes it different in a way that I really enjoyed all week.
Yeah.
And like I say, like going
just know when
backstage
to
and the
just
scores
rein it
coming
in a bit.
in and all of that, it was really, really fun. And to an extent, the fighters bought into it, but ultimately, they just care about their own fight.
But it's to try and get another type of audience to hopefully to latch onto it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's definitely
the contender did it, by the way.
I think the pros definitely outweighed the cons.
No, 100%.
And I'm interested to see kind of what happens with future concepts.
Absolutely a place
as well.
for it. You just don't want to do it too often.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the middleweight division, and the captain of Team Queensberry, Barry, going to come to you first. Hamza Sheeraz stopping Austin Ammo Williams late on in their fight. Thought overall a very mature performance again from Hamza Sheeraz.
I thought it was brilliant, because Ammo came for it. To be fair, as I knew he was Williams, but he just tucked up nice and tight. He got I called him a praying mantis.
Yeah, I thought that was very good. And they started asking you about the women having sex with the after, and just think like, mate, just call the fight.
There's YouTubers next door, but they won't be YouTubers very often. They'll be flying through the window.
But anyway, yes.
Yeah, but there was I'm going to go in there and bash him up. I'll tell you, I'm joking. He's doing my head in. Wankers.
He was in such a good mood as well.
I was in a good mood. But what's all that about?
I don't know, Barry.
Shouting.
Tell me about Hamza Sheeraz, though.
He was brilliant. He just tucked it nice and long. He's tall, but his arms are longer than his body, isn't he? And he got a lot of body to protect. But he just tucked it nice. When Ammo was trying to throw away, he just tucked up, didn't worry about anything. And as soon as he stopped, he just go bap, 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 bap. He used the jab really well, and then just controlled everything. Don't load. He doesn't load up on any shots. Everything's smooth. He twists the body into every shot. He's a problem, he isn't.
It's one of the things I wanted to talk about with you, because it was something that you said in the commentary, and it's something that we've spoken about in the past with generally heavyweights, because you have to have a certain frame for this to really be applicable to a certain degree. But that moving, that rotation at the hips, particularly with the right hand, and just turning the shoulders into the shot and staying nice and tall. And I don't feel like, I think this might have been something that you mentioned as well, there's no telling any of his shots. It all comes from here.
From
there's
the hips
no
to the shoulders.
Yeah.
So and it's very difficult to do that, but if you have that tall reach, and also what he was doing, Hamza, he was having the arm was here. No, I'm not a fan of that. But when you're tall, you can get away with it, because especially when you're sort of half sitting on the back foot as well. So and you're well aware that you got to do a little lean back maybe. but especially when as tall as he is, because what that does is it gives them they can't get their range, the depth perception is different. It's hard for them to reach because they got to get past this all the time. And because he does turn from the shoulder and he doesn't sort of go like this, he goes bam, bam, he turns into the shot because he's lined up. And then by doing that means you can get that arm up really quick without the tell, boom, but you're turned to throw the right hand. You've already done the twist. So all you got to do is throw your hip and your shoulder. You don't got to worry about the arm. Throwing your hip and the shoulder means the body will work for it by itself. Then you go boom, right down the middle, and if you do it fast, that speed of the shot, like Deontay Wilder, his power is at the end of the whipping punches because of the body's moves. You do it right, then you get the acceleration, and that's all that counts. You don't have to go. He's not heavy, boom, like that. It's just whipping.
Just lovely punch mechanics. Everything just works.
If you can work out your distance, which he has worked out very well recently in the last few fights, he knows his distance really well now, Hamza, which means every shot he throws gets the maximum. Chamberlain does it. Whether you're close or far, he gets the maximum of every shot. Sometimes he just knows where the range is. So you either take a little lean back when he throws a shot, or he'll push on the back foot through it. And Hamza is the same sort of thing. So staying tall for him is not a bad thing. And because he's got crazy long arms as well, he can cover up tight. I think he's still going to be vulnerable, which will make him an exciting fighter to watch. Because I think he will be vulnerable to hit. I think he can. I think what Williams never did is really rip up through the middle enough.
He dipped his knees a couple of times.
The left hand in the second round, wasn't it? A very long left hand. I think
he did it just past halfway, maybe. He kept him kind of honest right until the end, didn't he? When he went to work and got the stoppage, but up until that point he couldn't take any liberties with him, and he didn't. And just that ability to throw those straight punches, like you said, without any kind of tell. When he did that, he was bossing it completely, wasn't he? The only time he looked like he might be in a bit of trouble was when he liked to mix it with him up close.
But sorry man, and I'll let you speak. Probably not. But even then though, like, he didn't panic.
No.
He just goes back, he covers up, and he weathers it, doesn't he? And
that shell, like you described it, is something to see from ringside because, it really is. There's no gaps there.
It's too much body to protect, by the way, isn't there? So
it would take someone who can just hit you would just think, all right, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to bash you on the forearms and gloves, cannon the gloves into your face anyway, and you've got to be a heavy puncher to kind of make that count and then crack that shell, basically, I guess. But it was impressive. Yeah, it was. And he hurts you with every shot, even if he doesn't knock you out with every shot makes you go like that. And you can see him, like Williams, take those shots, and he's a tough kid, to be honest. It was a talent himself, and he kept trying to come forward with it, but in the end he ended up standing in that range where you don't need to be. And I think I was saying that in commentary, he's just standing, he can work out where he needs to be, and I think it was that arm out there that did it. Just couldn't work out where he was meant to be, so he was just staying there in the wrong place, hoping he could jump into an attack, and it just didn't work because then he was on the end of that long shot every time. And that's the problem. Then when he got close, he had to jump too far in, and it was easy for Sheeraz to read. Then at the end of it, that's what it turned out to be.
I thought it was a very disciplined performance. You had Ricky Funes in the corner as well, was admonishing him every time he tried to use the uppercut. Keep it nice and simple. Just keep pecking away. Just keep chipping away and keep breaking him down. And that's what he did. When he just threw straight punches because Williams had to step in and kind of throw them a little bit wider, he'd just get there first all the time. And that move to America, it's a big move to make. And we all love it over here, don't we? On the show, we love it when we see a fighter.
Yeah, it's a real commitment, and he's backed Hamza. He's got good sponsors, and people have enabled him to do that. But it's hard work out there. It is hard work, and I remember saying to him at the start of the week that the kind of, for want of a better praise, fuck you American heat that Williams will bring, the kind of like you're a big deal in the UK but no one gives a shit about you outside of that. He's seen it all before in the gyms, again and again and again and again, and I felt like that had helped him, and he was sort of quick to agree. There's nothing that this guy can bring to my door, chat wise or vibe wise or fight wise, I haven't seen before, because in America, if you're a Brit and rated, everyone is after you. 24 hours a day, every spar.
Absolutely. It's still even now to this day, still that most American boxing people, not all of them, but quite a lot, especially their pundits and especially the girls on Pro Box, by the way. By the way, I watched some recently with them that all Brits are massively overrated, and there's an argument for this. There's some truth in that as well. There is some truth, because you get a guy who can sell loads of tickets, and he does get orchestrated to a position.
Yeah, it's a much
But that
smaller
happens
pool,
everywhere,
isn't
of
it?
course.
Yeah.
They just think they do. There's an arrogance that if you're not fighting the Americans on a regular basis, or Mexicans on a regular basis, then you don't know what toughness is. And that's not always the case. But what Hamza's doing, going to America, I love it if it's the right move, not just going for the sake of going, because you end up being just a punchy from all the wars in the gym, and you learn what? Nothing. But if it's the right move for you, that move in a way, that dedication to your craft can backfire, because you can just be lonely and hate the sport you love. That can happen, but for him, it's worked for him, and some people need that. Some people need that isolation, the way to get everything right. But he's looking better than ever. And that was a real that fight. It was two guys in their prime meeting at the right time, that just before they go on to a huge fight.
Yeah, it was the biggest test of their career for both of them, wasn't it? By distance.
Two genuine middleweight prospects, two genuine guys who could, and Ammo Williams may well still go on to win.
I wasn't sure about that one. I picked Hamza, but I wasn't sure about that one.
Weirdo, I was.
Yeah, I was fairly.
I don't know why I was. I'd be honest, by the way. I knew he would win. There were some ones I got totally wrong.
I got a few of them.
Hrgović was one of them. Yeah. But I was so confident. I don't know why. I just thought Ammo was going to walk onto a shot. It didn't work out the way I thought it was going to work out. Actually, I thought he was going to actually put him to sleep. I thought he was going to walk on. It was going to be a devastating knockout. But just like his control. That's all. He doesn't have that panic anymore. And he's like they both had similar careers, but they've had loads of praise and they're fantastic. And they've had that little they've been like a Tom Cruise movie. They've had that crisis of confidence, but in the end they get through. And but that's what it looks like. No, all Hamza needs now, Sheeraz needs now, is that really experienced guy who's just tipped over the edge a bit.
Yeah.
To see what he copes with that. A guy who can punch a bit, who's really experienced, who's been a world champion, who's boxed for world title, and give that guy a run for his money.
He wants Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, which has been the
Wembley undercard.
The talk for Wembley.
That might be a bit too long in the tooth as a fighter for him.
We're expecting some big announcements for that card. Obviously, we'll kind of talk about the heavyweight division in a short while. But yeah, he's called out Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. Obviously, he's made no secret of the fact that he wants the biggest fights available, and I'm sure if the price is right,
there aren't that many options, are there?
Well,
currently?
Yeah, for him. I mean, but if you look at middleweight, it's something that we've spoken about over the last couple of years. Kind of the post Triple G, post Canelo, post Danny Jacobs middleweight
era. That was an
era.
eliminator as well.
Yeah.
With the WBC, wasn't it?
Which is currently held by Carlos Adames. Janibek, Alan Hanouli's at 2 belts.
In that fight.
I mean,
to be fair, he was good, but
yeah, I mean, Adames, somebody else who's a 154-pounder, kind of moved up. I mean, I think Sheeraz was more burst in the seams at 154. I don't know, but I'm sure Adames, as he's got older, it's not been easy to make the weight. But he's not a big middleweight. You'd imagine Sheeraz is going to be the biggest middleweight that anybody would face in that division. Liam Smith, another name, kind of floating about potential. Obviously had a win over Chris Eubank Jr. before losing in the rematch. But he's there or thereabouts now. I mean, we've looked at the middleweight division over the last few years, and I mentioned there kind of the post-Triple G, post-Canelo era. It's still somewhat wide open. I know Alan Hanouli has 2 of the belts, but we've still not seen him in a big fight against the Arislandi Lara, still knocking around there. I think he's got the WBA title. So there are options.
Still around, though?
No, I think Jamel is going back to 54, and Jamal I don't think is doing much at the minute. Yeah, I think he's champion in recess, and Adames is now the full WBC champion. But if you're Hamza Sheeraz, you're number 2 with the WBC at the latest. I mean, I'm quite sure it'll be higher after that. You're number 1 with the WBO, well rated all over the place, just beating Austin Ammo Williams, number 2 with the WBA. So there are options there. It's got to be world title next, I would imagine. If it's not a world title, it's got to be a big fight for Hamza Sheeraz.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So. And the Eubank fight is to be honest, you mentioned him. Any platform will want Eubank because he's a pay-per-view.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So let's presume that's TNT, unless it goes to Saudi, and so everyone's got it. But I mean, if that goes on TNT, that's pay-per-view for them straight away, and they'll do quite well because their Eubank name is huge. Even with Chris Jr. is still huge.
I mean, you get if that goes on the Joshua Dubois on the card, Joshua and Eubank on the same card. They've done that before in the past. It's worked very, very well. Yeah. Good little double act that they had going on for a while.
Yeah.
So that could definitely work.
That'd be lovely. That'd be a lovely.
Does Eubank take that fight? Do you think is it all about the money for him?
Yeah, I think it's all about.
I think he does. Yeah, for that reason.
I do. Yeah, and also he fancies his chances. I still think Hamza Sheeraz can be hurt. It's gone by his second name, not his first name. Otherwise, it would be Chris. But I think Sheeraz can be hurt, and I think he can be put to sleep. I think he might still be not dodgy around the whiskers, but the way he stands,
dropped a few fights ago, 3 or 4 fights ago. Obviously got hurt by Ammo Williams. So yeah, if you're another middleweight, you're not looking at him. I'm sure you're impressed with him at the weekend, but you see things that you can
But he's hard to follow up on. That's what he's good at. But he's hard to get the 3, 4, 5 shots on him in consecutive combinations. If I get my words out, but I think it's a fight that Eubank would fancy. I could, if the money's there, that's all. Slowly, he's going to want a guarantee before the pay-per-view. But if it goes on that on the card, which is part of the Riyadh season, but was it part of the pre-Riyadh season?
Yeah, it's
we all know Riyadh season all of a sudden.
It's paid for by them.
Yeah, commercial for Riyadh season.
And you'd imagine that would be the same deal as they had for Fury Usyk, where DAZN, TNT, and Sky will all want to do it, and that swells the coffers again, doesn't it? Yeah. So the budget for it's going to be pretty tremendous.
And if they're paying for it, I think that name is the sort of name that they would want.
Yeah, definitely.
Eubank.
And he had a really good performance against Liam Smith last time out. It was funny being backstage because he said that he may well have said it in the ring too, but I didn't hear that one. He said it to me in a interview in the dressing room, and I was saying to people, "Oh, he's just called out Eubank. That's interesting." And the consensus seemed to be that kind of Eubank's passed it in over the hill, and Hamza Sheeraz would take him out, and he's just won, and everybody's seen him just win, and everybody's hiring him, and that's fine. But I was thinking to myself, Eubank boxed really well against Liam Smith in the rematch. That's his most recent performance.
Yeah.
This would be you'd make him the favourite in terms of body of work and all that kind of thing.
You would up until now.
Yeah,
maybe. Though Williams, Austin Williams, a prospect, but again, he hadn't boxed loads of killers exactly.
No,
but he had some good hard fights. But I mean, so you still go, box a guy my experience and level, but there's miles on the clock with Eubank though, I think.
Yeah,
and I would say though he did the job on Liam Smith, that's the worst I've ever seen Liam Smith.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'd like that fight if I'm Hamza Sheeraz. That's the fight you want, isn't it? Because it's the biggest money available, and
the name and the profile.
You'd think that in his head at least, or maybe those around him, the world title will come, but the opportunity to box somebody of that name,
well, to be honest, of his age and all the fights he's had and the wars he's had, Eubank, if you're young and ambitious and you're thinking you're going to fight for the world title, but you're not going to get it next, that's the fight you definitely
100%. Yeah. Even if you get the option to box in Adames or a Eubank Jr., if you're the Hamza Sheeraz, you probably take the Eubank Jr. fight.
Yeah, as much as I hate that line of thinking, you're gonna do this, of course, because I would. I hate the line of thinking, but I do exactly the same thing. Someone's saying you're gonna get like 800 grand for boxing him, or you're gonna get 400 grand for boxing for a world title. You're gonna take the double.
Yeah.
And it might be more than that, by the way.
Okay, moving on and to the intermission from the 5v5, we saw Dimitri Bivol successfully defend his WBA light heavyweight championship in a quite fun fight, Andy. Back in the stoppage column for the first time in a minute, Dimitri Udivol, as he's has been affectionately known, but back in the stoppage column with a 6th round stoppage win over Malik Zinad.
It was a decent watch. I enjoyed it. I liked to see Malik Zinad around during the week. He was good fun to talk to. He definitely believed that he could win. Full of confidence, had some real strut and swagger about him, and the word that we had, because I didn't know loads about him before I arrived for that week, was that people rated his ability. He trained with Shane McGuigan, he trained with Joe Gallagher, both of whom rated the ability. It just didn't work out for various reasons that I've been led to believe were outside of the ring related. Not that he didn't train hard, but just that it didn't fit, basically. And when I kind of looked at the corner during the night, I think I got an idea of what could have happened there, possibly, because that corner was absolute chaos. Will Jones had no chance in there, really, because he had 2 people just shouting their heads off constantly throughout the entire fight.
He was telling them to shut up, though, wasn't he?
He was doing his best. No, he absolutely did. He really was. But it was one of those. Bivol's one of these guys, isn't he, where you can be doing well until you're not. And then that's just kind of it, really, isn't it? But it was good to see him get a stoppage, because you want to see him get one every now and again, don't you? And just take care of business.
Yeah, and also with the Beterbiev fight now rearranged, you don't want him to lose. You don't want him to, a dreary one. I kind of expected that. It was 117, 111 sort of Bivol, typical Bivol performance where he dips a little bit below his level because the threat's not there.
I never felt like he would be in any trouble because he's just not the kind of person, and with the way he fights,
it doesn't allow it,
and how efficient his style is, and how used he is to implementing it, I just couldn't see how he would have one of these absolute horror shows where you take your eye off the ball and it all goes wrong, because those were the perfect conditions for it. When things like that happen, they happen in situations like that. Yeah. But I still never got the impression that would happen to him.
Yeah, late replacement, dangerous, obscure puncher, because he can really punch.
Big step down in occasion.
And he's tall and long and he's awkward. I think
he's had a really good first round up until he got dropped in the last 10 seconds of the round. He had a good round. He kind of went and threw hands and went for it. Barry, has anything that we've seen from Dimitri Bivol and indeed Artur Beterbiev changed your outlook? October the 12th, where's your money?
I'm still going to stick to my guns. I like to stick to my guns because I always get it wrong then. But I picked Bivol just. But if you go on the last performance and said you've got to say Beterbiev huge, I think, because like that one, nothing in that fight makes you scared. If you're Beterbiev, nothing in that fight makes you scared of Bivol. If you take it from that, but you can't take it from that performance, but the thing with Bivol, he coasts fights. You've seen it before. He's good enough to coast fight. He don't take any risks. He doesn't fight like there's a crowd there. That I don't think. I think he fights like he spars. I'll just do what I do as long as I win. And to impress the crowd, that's the other people. Like Usyk. How many times have people said to Alexander Usyk, against Joshua was the prime example, the second fight, do you think he was gone for the stoppage? And he'd sort of go, maybe, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about winning the fight. Yeah. I think that's Bivol. I don't. Could you go stop him? Maybe I could have, and I would have liked to have, but I didn't try to do it unless it was there in front of me. I don't take the risk. He got headbutted. They had a little head-to-head, didn't they? The one before.
Yeah, at the end of the round.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
And even though he's not like an obvious anger, because he's not there, because he's like poker faced, I think that pissed him off, and that's when he went. I think he went a little bit more, slightly more aggressive. Otherwise, I think it was going to be a 17-11 sort of fight. Honestly, I would have thought it was going to be like that, because he wouldn't take any risks. He don't want to risk anything. What's coming up, cuts, lose. He just wants to win every round. And if you set the tide or you got opportunity to throw more punches, he will. But he was 1-2s very often. But then he started just up the pace a little bit, threw more punches, and then Zinad unravelled a little bit. But up until that, he sold himself, and it was a fight for him. He had nothing to lose. All he had to do was do well. I mean, win. If you can win, it's great. But do well in defeat, and you'll be a name for other people to fight now, and people want to see him, because I think he can be awkward, and he's not a bad fighter, but that's just a bit of too much of a step up for him.
Yeah.
But he comes away with flying colour. He comes away with loads of credit, I feel, in defeat. And Bivol, there'll be a bit more people saying, more people who just fancy Bivol now, I think will go over to Beterbiev side. I'm pretty sure now after that, saying, no, he didn't look that great, and it took him a while to get used to that style. But that's not I just think he just thinks all the time. And when you think all the time, you're not going to take those risks that somebody who punches, who's just a big puncher, doesn't have such a good brain would take. But the sign of a great fighter is, one of the signs of a great fighter, not like the only sign, is to know when to switch your brain off. That's the truth. You know when to take that risk to make not just a win, but to win big. And he'll need that if he's going to fight Beterbiev, because at some point things are not going to be working for him.
Andy, Beterbiev, Bivol?
I picked Beterbiev when it was going to be last weekend. He is picking up quite a few injuries as he gets older.
Knee is a recurring issue.
Beterbiev, yeah, and that does make me wonder a bit. But then last time we saw him, he was in savage form as usual against Callum Smith. So I don't feel like it would be wise to change my mind now. But
good for you, mate.
The longer it takes to happen, the closer I think it maybe gets. But I do believe it will happen in October, because even if Beterbiev's not completely fit, I think he will just fight in October, because he'd be worried that it would then just go away.
I would just say I think it's more important for Bivol to be active than it is Beterbiev, if that makes any sense.
Why? How so?
The way he fights. think the way he fights, he needs to keep his eye in.
Yeah, he's a rhythm kind of guy, isn't he?
Yeah. So he needs to keep his, and the only way you can get your eye in is real fights and real camps. They're better Biev because he's got good balance. I think he just throws himself into punches sometimes. But for a raw, natural puncher like him, it's less important. It's better if he is active. I mean, it's less important than it is for Bivol. He needs it more than him.
He's just never been active in his whole pro career.
No.
At all. Literally at all in his whole pro career.
And he hasn't lost anything by that,
No,
ironically.
No, sort of like
or he could have been so much better.
Yeah, God. Yeah, imagine that. Okay, moving on to the heavyweight section of today's show. Andy, can I come to you first for a resounding win and a brilliant win for Daniel Dubois against Filip Hrgović? Picks up the IBF interim title, which I think we all potentially at least expect to become a full version of that belt. Had to weather some early storms from Filip Hrgović, but ultimately got the job done in the end and won by stoppage.
He did. It was an absolutely mega win. It was a mega win, and I did fancy him. And I said it earlier in the week as being somebody who might spring an upset because Hrgović had to be the favourite. But something has happened with Dubois over the last couple of years. A lot has happened to him over the last 4 years since that fight against Joe Joyce. And it's something that I actually examine in the book. Is this idea
Available now on Amazon.
It's the idea, though, that bravery can to an extent be taught, or at least it can be extracted, and that a fighter can end up being a bit braver than maybe they thought they were, and that they discover they can stick in there when it gets difficult better than they thought they could. Because we all saw what happened against Joyce, and we saw what happened against Usyk. But before Usyk, there was Lorena, where it looked like it was probably all a bit much for him, but he managed to hang in there and he got the win. And then against Usyk, it was kind of an improvement because, okay, he did end up sitting it out, but he almost sat it out the round before, but actually then continued. And we all remember Big Don in the corner after that round saying, I saw what you nearly did there. Don't do it, not now. And then he did do it the next round. So when I suggested that was evidence that progress was being made on that front, not that many people really agreed because they just thought, yeah, but ultimately he did just stay down. But I asked Don about it at the start of the week and just said, do you feel people talk about it being like, oh, you've either got it or you haven't, the minerals. But do you feel like that's not really true, that it can be taught? And he said, listen, we're talking about a young man here. We're often talking about young men with athletes, with fighters. It's about evolution. It's about maturing. It's about kind of growing and all that kind of stuff, which I took as being a yes. And there was just evidence of it against Hrgović. He got hit hard plenty with that right hand, but he kept coming. And I think in the end, that is what kind of broke Hrgović, was that he felt like Dubois would cooperate. He felt like Dubois was a quitter. He said it in the build-up, and I think he actually believed it too. And then when it turned out that he wasn't, he unravelled pretty quick, didn't he? I mean, the cut was bad, no question. The cut was bad, but we got past halfway, and all of a sudden he looks absolutely done. And it was just a matter of time from that point on, and it was a massive performance. And he's different during the week now too, because I think previously he came across as quite childlike. He didn't really know what to say. He's kind of searching to say the kind of thing that he thinks that people want to hear. People will be feeding him lines. Now he doesn't care. You can ask him something and he'll give you an answer, or he won't, and he's not really bothered what you think about it. And that's a big difference. So in a way, he's still the same in terms of the fact that he doesn't really say a lot, but it's how he does or doesn't say it now. It's just, yeah, he's kind of a different guy, to be honest.
Finding himself inside and outside of the ring. Barry, just want to talk about Filip Hrgović. Andy just mentioned there, kind of he felt that Daniel Dubois would crumble, and obviously we'd spoken and heard about all of the sparring stories that Hrgović hospitalised him and he did this, that. He boxed in those first couple of rounds, Filip Hrgović, like a man who expected to win pretty swiftly by knockout. He was loading up with a right hand, stood there and tried to walk Daniel Dubois down from the opening bell.
Yeah, you got a guy here who's really talented, loads of ability, heavy hands, all the things you need from a heavyweight. But he's also one of a group of this generation of heavyweights who are so lazy that they turn into a fight, just think they're entitled to win because they have ability, or entitled to win because they have power. And I'm glad they're getting beat, Because what Dubois has shown, you have to have more than that. You have to show lots of other stuff, and the main thing is training outside your comfort zone. I don't think they do it. I mean, they get fit, but they get fit with it. I think they stop when they're tired. I think they're too in charge of their camps. All these heavyweights who run out of gas. It's ridiculous. You should be tired in a fight. Of course, you should be tired, but fitness is recovery. So you should be not afraid to get tired because you know you will recover because you're fit. So if you don't train beyond yourself, and every time you go down the fucking gym, it drives me mad. That's your only. You got two things to do as a fight. Not as heavy. You got one thing. You haven't got to make.
Have to make weight. Yeah.
You're going to make weight. You just got to be fit. You got skill. You got to work on your skill, and the skill for you out. And a lot of things are natural as well. By the way, boxing styles are natural, but ability to pick things up is quite natural. But be super fit. That's all you need to do. That can take you further than ability. That can, by the way, and. They don't fucking do it. Like they're getting paid. What more motivation do you want? An interim world title shot. You could be a world champion at your next fight. You could be the world champion. Stated. You're getting loads of money. These are the things that motivate people, isn't it? What else motivates you? I don't know what it is. An entitlement because you've just got through that. When you got through most of your life just on your ability, you think you don't have to do it. And I thought that's what it was. I'm not just saying that because I picked him to win. But I mean, yeah. But I think that was the difference between him and Dubois. Dubois was willing to work.
Dubois really wanted it, didn't
Every round he wanted to work, yeah.
Even through the fire.
And I thought, and Hrgović didn't have a bad start, I didn't think. He was boxing well, he was landing.
He was teeing off with the right hand.
All I kept saying was, he took the shot though. Dubois took the shot well. I don't think there's a problem with Dubois' chin. The reason why Dubois quit, and he has quit twice, so there is quit in him, and that's always a worry, and it's always going to be there. When he gets tired, he panics, he doesn't know what to do. And that's the truth of it. And even when you get tired and you get hurt, you super panic, and then you look in. Fuck, I don't know what to do here now. And you only when you push through that barrier, do you know what's on the other side.
And that's exactly it. I've always felt like that you can get better at that. Like I've always found it very difficult to accept that you can't get better at that.
But you've got to push through that barrier first.
It's hard.
And he didn't do it against Usyk. Once he got tired, he panicked, and he wasn't looking for a way out. He wasn't hurt. I don't think. He just, he was hurt, but I mean, that he would just. Sometimes in a fight, you feel literally, you just go. When you get hit with a big shot, for instance, and these guys are hit with big shots all the time, it drains your energy instantly, and you go. So you think the next shot's really going to hurt or whatever, and then you get knocked on by a jab, but then you panic. Fuck, what happened then? Oh, I'm knackered. And then you just stay there. It's never happened to me, but I mean, this happens. We've seen it with him, and he did it twice. And so you think it's in him, but I think what happened. The Miller fight was so important.
That was such a crucial win.
Oh. Yeah, they said no. So what you're going to say is you can say it. It's fine. I think we're all in agreement. He pushed through. I was talking to John Charles he was in my hotel. They were in my hotel. Him and Dubois. I was speaking to John Charles. They were so confident we're going to win, like all camps are. But they were also couldn't believe how arrogant Hrgović was, and they thought he's going in for a shock. And I was like, he is in for a shock. But I kept thinking Hrgović is going to keep whacking him with right hands by round 9 when Dubois tired. He's going to get that point. But against the Miller fight, he did get tired, and he pushed through, and he seen what was on the other side. What's on the other side was my fucking second wind.
Yeah.
And then he got the stoppage. He was better.
That was huge for him.
We've spoken about it, haven't we, in the past? Like, that was about as good. If you're in the Daniel Dubois business, which of course Frank Warren is. That couldn't really have gone any better because he had to overcome all of the things that people have levelled at him, and ultimately also showed that he's got power late in a fight as well. Not only can he push through and survive, he can close the show afterwards.
And I think and that's why. And so now in this fight, look how much he was pushing the pace, how much he was willing to work because he's so because he knows. You go back to the gym now after that Miller fight. I'm all over the place here, and he will go. I'm going to train harder now because I need to get fitter. Because I know once you push through that wall, I want to get through that wall quicker. You go, I want to be knackered by round 6, not by fucking round 8 now. Because I know after round 6, that second wind's better than the first wind. And also because I get that almost like an adrenaline rush. And you go, and when you think I'm into tired, I go, poof. And you're like, fucking hell. Why? You haven't just maintained the pace, he's upped the pace. And that's sort of what he did on Saturday.
And he has that instinct in him as well. We saw it in the last round against Jarrell Miller. We saw it against Hrgović. When he hit Hrgović and he saw some
reaction.
As soon as Hrgović looked like he didn't fancy it, Dubois kicks straight into gear. Frank Warren said afterwards, he's a great finisher. Okay, it wasn't like the conclusion of the fight where he knocked him out. But you could see the acceleration in him. As soon as he saw that little crack in Hrgović, he went through the gears. And Hrgović, there was no complaint at all. When the ref waved off, he just trudged back to his corner and he was fine.
That's why he was knackered. I know it was the cuts, but he was knackered. He was thinking, I don't want to. He
was going to get knocked out that round.
He almost Dubois it.
Sorry, Dan.
It's
true. Like, all of that talk beforehand about how he's going to quit, how he's going to do that. I mean, Hrgović, didn't throw the towel in, but there wasn't any complaint from him.
When you get a late stoppage like that, whether it's like stopped in the way that he was, or whether someone gets actually knocked out, it's because generally speaking, their will has been broken, and to an extent, it's a decision, or a lot of the time it can be, on some level, a decision that they make that they don't want to continue. And that's what that looked like, because he all of a sudden looks absolutely exhausted. You know, Dubois wouldn't cooperate. They'd done what they'd done in sparring, and he felt like he was still the same guy. Nailed him with loads of right hands. He's not obliging him. He's not going down. And then you get into the second half of the fight, and he starts coming on strong, and you've got this bad cut, and all of a sudden you start feeling sorry for yourself, and mentally, he kind of gave up, to be honest. But Dubois did that to him, and that's what those kind of stoppages are about. Sometimes you get someone who, you got two guys, neither of whom are going to give up, and one of them just gets caught. Both of them, the resistance levels are low. One gets caught and they get knocked out.
He needs saving, doesn't he?
Yeah, you've got two people who they will do whatever it takes to win, and one of them's going to get chinned. Or you get to that point where, you know, it's like somebody described it, you know, it's like an arm wrestle where you're locked in the middle like that, and everybody, you just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then all of a sudden, one of them just can't take it any longer, and bang, it's over. And that's what happened. And that was what made it such a great fight, because that was real brutal heavyweight boxing right there. I mean, it really was.
Yeah, the cut did him a favour in the long run. That's what's happened. The cut, him being stopped.
It was a way out.
That's his excuse now. I got cut. I think it did have an effect on him a little bit.
It was bad.
The one on the right guy was worse.
It really
was
was
nasty,
bad.
Wasn't it? Like right across there. But Dubois was fantastic. I don't know. And for a kid who's always those two times he quit are always going to stay with him. And especially for ex-boxers, we're always going to go, I saw it though. Because we've all been, if you box for long enough, or you box at a certain level, we've all been there where you wanted to quit. We've all been there where it's been tough, and some fight we're all built differently. I know that, but we know. So you know what it's like when you're in a round. You go, I don't fancy this, but it's a fleeting thought.
Yeah,
it
has to be, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't want to. I've been in a fight. A fight I won, and after 9 rounds, I was on the ropes getting caught, and I just went, I don't want to be here. Like, I don't think that's not the word, but it's that sort of feel. It's like you don't think it, you feel it. If that makes any sense. Yeah. I don't want to be here. But you know my reaction was? I threw about 15 punches off the ropes. They were all tippy tappy pussy punches, but I didn't have to get off the ropes because it was just like whoa, like you mentally slap yourself in the face. Go, exactly. What are you doing? Get onto it.
That dialogue, that inner voice. It happens. It's like fighters always. Well, I mean, fighters tell me it does happen. We would think, like, you haven't got time to be having a chat with yourself, but you do, don't you? You're on the ropes, and you're thinking, fuck this. And then, oh, no, come on, I can't swallow it now. And you know...
I was thinking, I've done well. I wasn't expected to win. I'm doing well. I do well.
You can talk yourself into it.
But then but it's like, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but you've got to snap out of it quick. Like you say, if you find yourself down on a knee and you're talking yourself into it, before you know it, it's 10 and you're done.
But you know what does that to you? Fitness. I wasn't hurt. I was tired. Same with Daniel. Those 2 times he was hurt, but he was tired. He was knackered, and it's that fitness level because you need to have that.
That's how you break someone.
You got to push through it.
That's how you break someone.
And you push through it. And
people are easier to. You become less brave the more tired you are. Basically, from what I've been told, the exhaustion is just this massive, massive thing. And if you can just hold on and break through to that other side once, like he did against Miller, then all of a sudden you're in just a completely different landscape. Like Teddy Atlas was around last week, and I remember reading his book, and a passage that kind of really stuck with me was he was always at pains to explain to his fighters that, like Barry said, those seconds where it all seems like it's too much, like that will pass, but the shame and the disappointment in yourself that you'll feel if you quit, that won't. And in other people's minds it won't either. But if you can just do it once, and he did it once, I feel like it's, he's a different guy now.
But if you have no confidence in your fitness, If you haven't done the work, I always say you win or lose a fight mentally the night before, because every run everyone cuts a corner somewhere, even the perfect camp. So if you haven't done the run that night before, it comes back in your mind. That sleepless night, it comes back in your mind. Oh, I missed that run or two. We've all done it. Different levels of your career.
If you tick all the boxes, it keeps doubt under control as much as you can.
So you just so that's the thing. And with fighters like Hrgović, then they don't. I think Dubois always trained hard. I think, but maybe he's had to train differently, or maybe he trained hard. He never had to fight hard like that, because he always controlled it with his power, his weight, and strength. But in the fights that he quit, things were happening to get out of his control, and he panicked when fatigue.
Hrgović underestimated him, didn't he?
Yeah.
Hrgović read too much into the spars from a few years ago and just thought, you're still the same. And I can understand why you would have thought it, because he thought, I saw what happened against Usyk, I saw what happened against Joyce, I know what happened when we sparred. You didn't want it, you didn't turn up 2 times out of 4. That's who you are. I will put it on you and you will cave.
But to be honest, he might still be that Dubois, by the way, because we'll see him with a different style now. We're not trying to put rain on his parade, but we might see him with a guy who boxes at a higher pace, and he still might have that quit in him. But on Saturday, he was fantastic.
Well, speaking of which, because we do have to move on, Anthony Joshua seems to be the man who could well be next in line for Daniel Dubois, if indeed it is, for a full IBF heavyweight title. How do we see that fight going, Barry?
Who's with the zone?
Joshua.
I'm all Joshua.
TNT, you're not going to go on there. Don't worry about that.
I don't know. I've never heard of TNT before. No, I still go Joshua. I think because he has experience. And I think even though that he knocked out Ngannou, but it wasn't who he knocked out. It's the way he did it.
Yeah,
I think that's important for him, because I think he needed that. Even though he's had improvements. Since Usyk fight, he needed that since Usyk defeats. He needed to get that real crushing knockout, just to think, when I real commit to a shot, I still got it. I still got that, you're going nowhere. And I think, that just worked on from Helenius knockout, where he didn't box great, but the last round he committed to his attack, and this time again he was really earlier away against a novice, but a novice who just took the heavyweight champion of the world to a point.
Right, the performance against Otto Wallin as well in between, where he kind of set about Wallin, didn't he, from the first round? Sort of continued off the back of that.
The Wallin fight was the one that I really thought he could.
But it's still what you said from the Helenius fight, where he followed on from the 7th round or whatever it was.
So there's been a natural progression of improvement from him. So I think, so I still fancy him, because Dubois is a hittable target. But now Dubois knows he can fight at a higher pace, and we'll have to do that against Joshua. So that's all of a sudden. That's a fight. A few years ago we wouldn't have even put him in the same room. No. But no, that's a fight where you can make a case for either one. But I think Joshua, with experience and I think his natural ability, I think he's a smoother boxer than Dubois, to be fair. But you speak to people who've taken them both on the pads, and they say Dubois hits harder.
Yeah. A lot of them say Dubois is the hardest hitter.
It's just a great fight for us, isn't it? Because it'll be at Wembley. It's 2 Brits, and you've got one in Dubois who's really got the wind in his sails, as has Anthony. But they've both got great momentum, and that's what you want, isn't it? They'll both be bursting with confidence. Dubois will fancy it big time, and he will genuinely believe that he's going to win. It won't be just some kind of like hope, and it will be an expectation. He absolutely thinks that he can do it. I think it just makes for a real just good matchup.
If I had to push you for a winner,
I think you've got to pick Joshua. Again, it's the kind of body of work, and the fact that he seems to be getting back to something like his best, but we probably haven't seen Dubois' best. So again, he's going to need to produce a career best performance at Wembley, but who's to say he can't do that on recent evidence?
The crowd may play a factor there as well, maybe, because that'll be a massive audience. For
Joshua's been there and done it.
Yeah, and I think Joshua's mentally he's in a better place than he's been ever, maybe, because even though he's always had that thing around him with his weight of expectation, or media or people constantly, I saw him Saturday, and literally you speak to him and it's like just people just taking photos of him, picking his nose or whatever. He can't do anything. We're not even there. Except when Ronaldo was there on the last show, no one spoke to him. He was
asking him to take the photos.
but I think he's in a better place, because he's not trying to be this media darling anymore. He's not trying to be the poster boy for boxing. I am what I am, and I know who I am, and all the money's me. But he's living his life now. I think he's living his life a bit more freely. He's acting himself. And whether himself is a lovely guy or an asshole, he's being who he is. I'm not saying he's an asshole, but what would they even say it?
He's doing it for himself now.
He's doing it for himself.
Yeah.
He just thinks, I'm going to act how I act, and if people like me, if they don't like me, that's fuck them. And I like that. Yeah. And as a heavyweight champion of the world, as a heavyweight boxer, you should be I like a little bit of nastiness or a bit of street or whatever you got in you. That's good. That is. That's what's taking you. That's what got you out of the slums and got you where you were. That grit and that go fuck you attitude. I've sworn a lot today.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. I like it. It's usually at me, so I'm
that was. Do you know why? That was as tired as I am still from that trip. That was a wicked weekend. It was a great week. But that was a proper brilliant.
Saturday the card itself was absolutely fantastic. Beforehand, you're sort of watching it, and you've got no idea how any of these fights really are going to go, and all of them pretty much played out that way as well. I think probably Sheeraz and Williams kind of quite soon you could sort of see how that was going. Sort of Hutchinson Richards kind of played as everyone expected just up until the midway point where Richards didn't take over. So even when Hutchinson was winning the early rounds, it was like, well, is Richards going to bring it? There was no kind of, it kept you engrossed for all of it.
I was saying that all week that you can't be wrong with your predictions on this because unless you know anything. Unless
you pick Wilder.
I mean, no, but even I thought, well, actually, yeah, maybe. No, unless you pick Hutchinson.
Well, because where's the evidence of that?
But I mean, whoever you picked, you can make an argument for either fighter, and I mean, not just he could catch him. No, I mean, you can make a strong argument. Yeah. And so, it was a fantastic card.
Final fight on the card was, of course, in the heavyweight division. Andy, going to come to you. Deontay Wilder knocked out spectacularly in the 5th round by Big Bang Zhilei Zhang. Thoughts?
Sorry, you can hang on. Sorry. He had the little clip, and he go, Big Bang, I bang everyone.
I bang everyone.
Yeah. You didn't bang it, not me, mate.
It's a Queensberry bang Matchroom, which is about right.
That's basically what happened. Yeah. They bent them over.
They got big banged all right.
Watching it was hard to watch the end because. And actually, that knockout could have been a lot worse. He got back to his feet and the referee didn't allow him to continue, so he got stopped. But the way he turned his back and then turned back around again just as that punch landed meant that he wasn't braced for it at all. And Zhang can punch really hard. And if it had been a heavier shot, not that it wasn't heavy, but if it had been a heavier shot, then it would have just turned his lights out completely. So in that regard, he was actually slightly fortunate. But it's over for Deontay, I'm afraid. And I really hope he retires because I've enjoyed watching him enormously. I haven't always enjoyed all of the things that he said, but at the same time, that's the business he's in. But he just can't do it anymore. And that's the truth of it. The way he's been kind of in fight week, these last 2 fight weeks, something has happened. That edge is gone. It was well and truly gone before the Parker fight. He tried to reinvigorate it the week just gone, but I didn't really buy it. I don't think you can really do that. And where he is in his head now, for the rest of his life, is great. For boxing, it's a disaster. Ayahuasca and all the rest of it. I just hope he can move on from this now and call it a day and find some peace. But I do worry that we will see him again because I saw him leave the doctor's room and he was incredibly frustrated. He kind of beat the wall as he was going down the corridor. And I know that's a really quick reaction, but it just suggested to me that he felt like he could have done so much better and that he would want another go, because you look at his record and he's lost 4 of his last 5 and he's been stopped 3 times. And that's actually quite a familiar run for the finale to a career, because fighters, although they are the first to know that it's going or it's gone, they're the last ones to accept it. So 4 defeats out of 5, that should be enough, but I'm not sure it will be, because I think he will kind of separate out the Fury defeats, one of which he successfully sold to himself in the second fight, and then the third was this battle for the ages where he very nearly won. they're in a different category, I think. And the defeats against Parker and Zhang, those are the ones that showed the signs of real deterioration. And I just worry that we're going to see him one more time. If I had to bet, I would say that we probably will see him one more time, unless people can really get around him and tell him, listen, that's enough now. Because the power didn't really seem to be there. Or maybe it's the timing. It's just that ability to pull the trigger, because that kind of loose, rubbery, like elasticity and ability to fling in a punch from any angle and chin someone, that just doesn't seem to be there anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't. Barry, just going to kind of throw it over to you, really, just to echo what Andy said there. It was a far cry from, and I get, Deontay Wilder hasn't always looked like the most conventionally sound fighter, and he's given up rounds in the past to lesser fighters, certainly, than Zhilei Zhang and Joseph Parker, but there was always a kind of air of inevitability, of a threat that we didn't really see, indeed, in the Joseph Parker fight, but certainly this weekend against Zhilei Zhang. He looked to me like a fighter, or a person, rather, who was thoroughly unfit to be in a boxing ring, if that makes sense. He didn't look like he belonged in the ring.
That's his career. Take away the knockouts of most of his fights, and you'd say that about all his fights. He doesn't look like he belongs there, because he does very little. People in the week were thinking he'll outwork Zhang, which is okay. That's easy. You just throw 4 punches, but like he doesn't throw a lot of punches. No. He does a lot of his career is mostly waving that arm, and then doing nothing for ages. But in the end, we forget about that, because when he does throw that right hand or left hook or whatever, he puts you to sleep, or he certainly hurts you. But if he wouldn't have got those knockouts, if you delete the knockouts from his fights and just watch all of his fights. It's a real boring watch. He does fucking nothing. Like he's awful to watch. But when he hits you, it just looks fantastic. And that was there. He didn't do anything. He didn't throw a fucking punch. It was just ridiculous. And he made Zhang look busy. No, but Zhang didn't do anything either, really, until he could. It was a great card, and the finish was great. But that was the worst fight by a million miles on Saturday, and I always felt it was going to be like that.
But we all have punch stats here. I think it was Zhilei Zhang has the lowest output of anybody in boxing, and Deontay Wilder was number 3. Yeah. So it was always going to be something of a staring match up until that point, but there just didn't seem to be.
He don't commit to the shots. See, one thing that Wilder did, he never understood his range, but he would swing anyway. And then at some point, so he'd swing 10 shots, and he'd miss you with 9. But when he hit you with that 10th one, whether it be the 4th shot, whatever shot he hit you with, you felt it to a point where you were either rendered unconscious or inactive for a little while. You just did nothing, because you was like, whoa, and then he'd throw again. So he didn't do that. He's throwing a shot like what happened to Joshua with the Ruiz. He's throwing a shot, thinking about what's going to happen next. And when you don't have when you have the weight that other heavyweights have, he's like to the Nuzik, for God's sake. You know what I mean? Is he like to the mod?
Yeah, massively.
Coley was, yeah. So there you go. So that's his next fight, ironically. You watch. But I mean, but you need the speed. That was his friend. The speed of the shot. Him being light and athletic. Sorry, I'm all excited. Him being light and athletic was what worked for him, because he whipped the shot in, and he had so much natural power and speed on the shot. At the end of it, he'd go whap, and you'd be asleep. But no, he don't throw it that way. Just throws it.
He sort of was pushing it. And this is kind of what I meant. He looked like with respect, a shot fighter. Somebody who didn't understand his range, even on his feet when he's sort of ambling around the ring. He's ambling into the backhand as well, which is he just never looked settled on his feet. Everything looks.
Sorry,
that's right. Go on.
So he used to be a dangerous puncher coming back. By the way,
he's dangerous all the time.
He lined your cone, wouldn't he? He had that turn of the shot. You go whap, but no, he don't. Every punch was just. Oh, I'm not sure. And then he couldn't get his jab going. Out against the southpaw is difficult, but nothing was there.
No, it was weird to watch, because he's this 6'7" of just sinew and muscle, but he was like this elastic band, wasn't he? This just like really taut elastic band where he could generate that power seemingly from absolutely anywhere, because he just had that slingy kind of bounce to him, and he hasn't got it anymore. It's as simple as that. It's like he's been kind of slightly sort of frozen. The movement, he just, his mechanics, his biomechanics, the way he moves, he just isn't the same anymore.
No.
And that happens sometimes, and it's just a cycle of sporting life, I'm afraid. And then you don't quite see the openings as quick. And what was happening where he kind of turned his back and spun around and then turned around and walked straight onto a punch, it's too serious to be comical, but it was kind of slapstick. Almost.
He didn't look like he knew what he was doing in the ring.
That's what I mean.
From the first bell up to that point, I think he got buzzed by that right hook.
He got hurt. He got hit and that spanning around, to be honest. He didn't know where he was. His feet have always been awful. But for Zhang, he must have thought, I can't believe my luck here. Because, he just had to walk him down, didn't he?
There was a moment in the second or third round where he backed Wilder up into the corner with just feints, obviously, because he didn't throw any punches. And you could sort of, and the times, because we always used to talk about Wilder's weight, and when he came in like comically heavy against Fury in the third fight, we all agreed that, 215, 217 around where he was on the weekend.
His best work.
But like when you saw him in the ring, you're like, oh God, he's really small. Like when Zhang was getting on top of him, like he looked like a tiny man.
When he was long and lithe and had that kind of like coiled
you didn't think that, did you? You never thought that.
But he hasn't got that anymore.
No, could he wing the punch? Even if he missed, you go, poor if that it.
Yeah.
You feel the breeze, I'd imagine.
And Zhang would have felt that way as well. But like
as it was, he was very stuttery, just kind of just hesitant. Like the phrase people always use is unable to pull the trigger, and that's exactly what it looked like.
I literally said that on Saturday.
Well, it is true, and it was the same in the Parker fight where he couldn't get off for 12 rounds of the Parker fight.
Yeah, he
said afterwards in the ring, as we've always said, is always the most revealing interview. Maybe I don't have it anymore. Maybe this, maybe that. One would hope that he has enough people around him and he's made enough money. I think he made some bonus money at the weekend for the Zhang fight. Certainly not a bonus for winning for Matchroom, but I think that was his one too many, and I would hope that that's all we see is one too many.
I doubt it, because the people in his room are also making money. So
it's always the way, isn't it? Fighters stop fighting when people stop paying them to fight.
Yeah, but that's not fair, because that's putting a judgment on the people around him, saying that they're all there for the money. So you can't say that, can you? I mean, that's not fair. But no.
But everybody benefits from him continuing to box. It's a fact of
But also they you can fool yourself into thinking that somebody should continue for reasons that aren't entirely selfish, because you don't want it to be over for them. It might not be about you. It might just be, I've been with you. I know how gutted you are and how upset you'll be if it ends here. You kind of want it for them. And that's where you need to be able to just take a step back and just say, Malik Scott, they seem pretty close. Shelly Finkel's been willing forever, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's the guys like that, really. You just need to be able to say to them, listen, big man, I'm sorry, but this is your work here is done.
Yeah,
and while very, very fine work, but it's over.
He's earned a shitload of money, and he has. So, and certainly from these, I know there's more money out there for him, but I don't know now. But even a load of money, he looks like he's still intact. He's quite articulate. He's a great speaker. He can still be around in the sport, involved in the sport, doing other stuff, I would feel, if he wanted to. But if he doesn't, he's been a heavyweight champion of the world. He's been one of the most fearsome punchers in boxing
10
history.
defenses.
Exactly. So he's had a great career. He got kids, and so like enjoy it. Enjoy your children. Enjoy it now. And also, as Lennox, I've seen a quote somewhere. Lennox Lewis might be in like boxing news or something when he online, but he gone like Lennox Lewis says something like
There's more to life.
There's a long life. There's a lot more of life after you box to go and live, and with money as well means you can do whatever you want to do. And
I think he knows, and it's it's as people say, like fighters are like addicts, and one of the biggest kind of misnomers I think about addiction is that the addict's the last one to know. They're the first one to know. They're just the last one to accept it. And with fighters, with athletes generally, they're in their own body. They're the first ones to know that they're slipping, but you don't want to accept it.
And also, he's lost a good fighter. It's not as if he's
exactly.
That's all I hate that word bums. But I said
no, he's not losing way beneath his level.
Zhang is a world class fighter. For 20 seconds of a round. Well, he is. I think Zhang's beatable because he doesn't do enough work. And Parker showed that. But Parker's a world class fighter as well. Arguably should get a world title shot. Well, not arguably, he should get a world title shot.
Most likely be elevated.
Yeah.
He's the WBO.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And then and obviously then Tyson Fury at his pomp, really. You know what I mean? So there's no shame there. And drew with him, though no one thought it was a draw. But he drew with Tyson Fury. So he's had a fucking great career. For a man who really is technically flawed.
He came to boxing very late as well. And we mentioned his daughter as well. Yeah. He was kind of well known that he started to box to support his daughter, spina bifida. So yeah, he's had a brilliant long career. I think we're all in agreement that we would hope that that's probably going to be the end of the Bronze Bomber. But the final thing, where next for Zhilei Zhang? Obviously has had a sort of up and down, more up than down over the last 12 to 18 months. Had those 2 brilliant wins over Joe Joyce, and then of course was less than impressive against Joseph Parker. He's now back in the win column, and a knockout win over Deontay Wilder. He's going to want a big fight next.
That's the important thing. You got the knockout win. Like, that could have been a 12-round.
Terrible fight. Yeah.
It would have been gone back. It would have been, even if you'd gone like real late in the fight, it was going to be awful. He stops him. That's good. So Parker beats him, but he stops him. That's the difference. So he's in the call. He's in the calling for any fight now. Whatever happens, I presume October. After that, everything goes except for one belt. WBC they'll probably keep. I don't know why, but that's maybe. But whatever's kept, there's 3 other belts there. So you have the WBA or WBC to fight for. One of those 2, I think. So
Parker rematch, Zhang Parker too.
Well, I think it's a good fight. It's a fight because every time he hit Parker, he hurt him. And he came in lighter for this fight.
Yeah, you could tell there was it like
he was in much better shape.
He was a svelte 282, but he was 290 plus for the first fight, and you could tell, like you could really.
But it was
tell
amazing the difference it made. But just to look at him, because I was on the treadmill next to him like a couple of days before, and I know he hasn't got to make any weight, but I was just looking at him basically, and I just thought, wow, like you do look. I was surprised that he was only 9 pounds lighter actually when he hit the scales, because I thought, God, he might be a stone even more, maybe lighter than last time, because he's still massive and really, really dense, but he was just looked so much better.
And he's come a bit like, I don't want to lose too much weight because he has got good timing. He's got good timing.
Yeah.
He knows where he is. Fast reactions for a big fella, but a little bit more weight again, I think he can lose, and just give him a little bit more energy later on in the fight.
Yeah, not loads more, but a bit more.
Let's do one of the Riyadh season commercials or whatever in Beijing. Come on, it's a big fight for Big Bang in the Bird's Nest.
Huge, it'd be
It's massive. We've been calling for that for such a long time.
There's loads out there for him now. I think that's the important part, and he's back on track. That's the one that puts you back on track again. So Parker rematch,
a massive win.
Maybe Joshua don't fight Dubois, and he gets Dubois.
Joshua Zhang in the Bird's Nest. It's been the fated fight that we've been speaking about for a long time.
But it'd be good. They're all good. They're all fights you want to see. I mean, he's not a great watch, but his finishes are great watches.
He can make for great moments, can't he? In fights for sure.
And he's a proper character too. He's fun. During fight week, he's very relaxed. He knows exactly what's happening. He knows that he's being fed lines that are kind of mischievous, but he's happy to do it because
the face he put, he's like a giant Yoda.
Yeah, and he's just boxing's very, very serious, obviously, or at least it can be. But I've always felt like it's too serious a sport to be too serious all the time. And the fight week with him is fun because he'll say I bang Matchroom, I do this, I do that. He's just a good guy to have around.
Good character.
And his broken English helps him.
Yeah, it always does, doesn't it?
Does that make sense? Like,
Like me.
But
that is all we have time for. We've managed to cram it all in to today's session. But thanks for everybody for watching and for being patient as well. We've been sort of having our sort of hiatuses.
See you next month.
Yeah. But yes, all done today. So from me, Rob Tebbutt, from Barry Jones, from the new author, go and get The Knockout by Mr. Andy Clarke, and we'll catch up with you next time.